All right, I guess we got a quorum. We can get started. We're gonna open the meeting up. I don't even have the right date. July 15th, January 15th.
July 15th.
Whoa, that trip really did it.
So, Jesus, back in time, Larry?
Yeah, yeah. All right, so we're at the EMS building. The first thing on the agenda is ask for any changes or adjustments to the agenda.
Sean is coming in at 6:45 to talk about the ball fields at the dairy center.
Okay. Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to add that to the agenda.
I'll move to add that to the agenda.
Oh, second.
Phil made the motion to add the agenda. Pierre seconded that motion. Any more discussion? If having none, all those in favor of adding Shauna to the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Unanimous ayes, and that's agenda has been adjusted. So we're now on public comment section.
Got anything to say, Peter?
It's her. Might be Emily. Never met her. Are you Emily?
Hello, yes, I'm
Oh,
Emily.
hi, I'm Billy Joe.
Hi. Sorry for being a few minutes.
Oh, you're early.
We don't have any warrants or anything, do we?
I think I put them
Actually, we could do the,
right here.
we could
There's some big
we could act on the minutes.
Mhm.
Waiting.
Jesse is coming on his.
One's in public portion. We'll look at December 18th minutes for approval.
Probably the only thing I would add on the David and Sally Trihorn thing is the location of the project.
Okay, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Other than that, I'll move.
I'll second.
Pierre
You want to
made,
throw an E on the end of your name, too? You want to throw an E on the end of Trihorn?
Oh, I didn't know they were going to.
Pierre made the motion to accept the minutes with that adjustment. Phil seconded that motion. Any more discussion? Seeing here none. All those in favor of accepting December 18th minutes, signify by saying aye.
Right.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Unanimous approval for the minutes.
Jesse's coming, you said?
Yeah.
All right. We'll look at these. That's the one thing they're using the salt this year.
Well, that was a hard thing to get. I
yeah?
tried calling everybody to try to find those invoices, just like I had a problem last week that we spoke about, which I did get on Friday. So one of the delivery driver said, I'm sure I can get that for you. I said, well, you can get that for me. So not the same company, you know. I left several messages, emails. Finally, somebody called and they said, do you need the tickets or the invoices? I said invoices. They sent me the tickets, so then I had to call them back.
This one here is, yeah, it's got a continuation.
Oh, I
It's
didn't,
a
I looked
shop
at the
floor
front, yep.
adjustment.
Can you circle that on the front part, so I don't make that change?
Oh, we got another one.
Oh my goodness, look at me go today.
It's the same company. They charging us a shop on.
Guess
A
I
nice blank second page.
wasn't paying attention. Days.
So that truck's good to go now?
They're all running right now.
Big
There's-
truck?
I think there's snow coming tomorrow, so let's hope they stay running. But we do need to think to ask Joey about what we have on the horizon, if any of them will order, because,
Oh, he didn't order one in the end?
no. One Gary's driving is a 14, the one Lucius is driving is a 17. So 14 definitely needs to be.
Yeah.
17 needs to be right behind it, because once they're out of warranty, we had talked a long time ago,
What's it-
but
how
that
many-
was to go down the road.
How many year warranty on this?
6 or 7. So really,
Yeah,
after
almost
that,
should
they
do
need
it
to.
every 6 or 7. Should
Yeah,
just do
'cause
it.
when we did that with Lucius's truck that last time, we got a pretty good return. We got quite a bit for the truck.
Right.
I didn't have to pay too much out in repairs. Because warranties are worth it.
Does this go with the executive?
No, that was something that Bethany missed sending us. It's just, they need an extension of their contract because they're still working on the final numbers for that guy from,
Dean? From John Little or from Stantec?
so Stantec and John Little are, I guess, the same people. So from the construction company, I forget what their name is. Pratt, David Pratt.
Yeah.
They're still working on that, so they need that signed because they actually already ran out, so we need continuation of that for the grant and the reimbursement. Still in hurry today. We still need to have on the contract. And I know Joey emailed them. I was having any luck. They're just having lots of fun out there.
Were you the only one coming from
For
Northwest?
NPC, yes. Yep. Well, I see Jesse coming.
Yeah, he is supposed to be coming. He was waiting for his wife to get home so the little darling wouldn't left alone. I said I'd send Gary over to babysit.
She said she was further along than she was.
Yeah, there's two of them that are circled, there's a
Well, we have
adjustment that
daycare
needs
down the
to be
street, that's
made.
all.
No, I should have.
Second sub,
I didn't realize she
it's,
went. She
that's
went
the
to go
subtotal,
drop
there's a total.
more money to the
Those
insurance
two.
people for the house. That's why I thought she was.
And there was
She
shop
said she was on the other side.
170, 140, somewhere around both of them. we get this from?
It is.
They were hired to capture these animals. We're still waiting for our bill to be paid, must be.
I didn't know you hired yourself out like that. Because there's some stuff going on in the village that we could hire you for. You're into wrangling.
I almost had a perfect day with a new pup.
Almost.
Almost.
What kind of dog is that?
It is an Australian Labradoodle.
Australian Labradoodle. Okay.
Yeah. Apparently, so mom and dad, typically like one's lab and one's poodle.
Right.
Labradoodle. Mom and dad are both Labradoodles. So now Labradoodle is now a breed.
Right. And they
I
would
didn't
mix
realize.
that with an Australian Shepherd?
I don't know where the Australian comes in.
Must be.
Yeah, I don't know.
Get a little short tail?
Little curly, cute.
Oh, it's
yeah,
gonna take
yeah.
it.
So that's poodle tail.
Yeah. She's 8 weeks old and probably one of the smart, for the 2 days, one of the smartest dogs we've ever had. And it was my fault she didn't go, we had just gone out, came back in, and she was sniffing the carpet. I thought she was just smelling whatever the smells that were on, and I turned and went back and I'm like, no. Yeah. So she was by the door.
See? Bell trained.
Yeah.
I'm 100% into bell training.
You
My
are?
dogs are both bell trained
Yeah.
and never
Gracie
trained
just
never
barks.
anyway. Oh yeah, they ring the bell when they want to go out. It's hanging from the doorknob and they go over and they bump it with their nose or their paw or something and then they're going to go out.
Just gotta teach them to open the door.
That's right.
Yeah.
And knock on the door.
Yeah.
Jessica not coming tonight.
No, she's under the weather.
Yeah, I came back from a trip and find out Clemens got COVID.
Yeah, we heard that.
So I've only talked to him on the phone.
A friend of ours went to, on a cruise last week and they all came back with COVID. Enclosed place like that.
The party goes on.
And the hospital is back to wearing masks, just an FYI, if anybody needs to go to the hospital or visit anybody in the hospital, put your masks on, get back to masks.
All right. Move on to the next agenda item, which would be Emily Clough, am I saying that right?
Cloth, yep.
From Northwest Regional Planning. Here to discuss proposed bylaw changes, and so.
Yes, I've got two things here, I have a memo, and then I've got, this is all the details of all the potential changes.
So are you taking somebody's place at Northwest Regional, or?
No, I've been
Been here
in
for-
Northwest for
okay.
a couple of years now. I when Taylor, if you remember Taylor Newton left.
Taylor was when, in Angie's time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you were around then.
But we just have,
You can sit up
had
here.
to have bylaws changed until now, so that's
Yes.
Right, yeah.
why we haven't made it.
Yeah, I think the last time we working on stuff for Enosburgh was a town plan back in 2020 with Greta.
There you go. All right, leave the floor to you.
Sure. Did you want to
copies?
see these, so, because he's more aware of
Yeah.
this stuff than I am.
Should be what I have.
Yeah.
Should be what I have anyway.
Yeah, this is just like a summary sheet.
Yeah.
You already have this. I can do if you do have another one of those.
Okay.
There you go. I think I have enough for everybody. So, 2021, the town got their municipal planning grant, and the purpose of the grant was to consolidate the town and village zoning bylaws, and with a specific focus then on the village area as well. So a lot of the more major changes to the bylaw, a lot of them are more to do with the village, so I've highlighted here the ones that are more to do with the town. So 2 zoning districts between the village and town are essentially being combined, and those are the rural districts and the agricultural districts. And on the last page here, you can see the draft. And this is again all what's been discussed so far. So the reason for coming to you guys, and we're also going to the village trustees, is to get any input and feedback that you have as the planning commission is continuing to work on this and deciding what the final edits for the hearing should be. So you can see the yellow on this map is the rural residential. So that's been merged between the village and towns. And same with the white, which is the agricultural, merged between the village and town.
Would this be the time, like if there were changes that people wanted to make, remember the area by the gravel pit, they were interested in not having that in so much in conservation? Is that when this would happen, if you didn't want all of that in the conservation?
Yeah, so there's a specific area.
Oh, where Matt you're talking?
Well, when Dorothy lived here in town, remember, do you remember that? She had interest in, she still does, I'm not trying to speak for her, but she had come to the office several times a week with Angie because she had wanted to build a house, but the land that she was gifted from her mom and dad was all in the conservation district, and it had really got there inadvertently from many years ago of it getting
Right.
slid into.
Yeah, definitely, because we've changed. We changed we changed a few different ones. There was one by Sticks and Stuff we changed that was commercial. We changed that. Well, that's the village. You guys, yeah, it's a little tough to see that one. We changed. That might have been just the biggest one, I think.
Yeah, and some of the stuff in the village got moved to high density residential.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there's a specific area,
Is this, are any of them new, like this one that's on Larry's property, or is it Gabe's property? Can you
these
see
are
that
all
there?
the same
The
as,
big green square right on 108,
Yeah, what is that?
that
is
was
that your land or Gabe's?
always in the villages, so that's a
Oh, that's a
whole other-
village thing?
Yeah, that was always in the villages, so we didn't change that. You can see like there's that dashed line there, that's
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's
boundaries of the
that's
village.
boundaries, yeah.
So we didn't really change any of the, other than merging those two, making some changes in the village. We didn't like try to sort of align the boundaries between the village and the town.
So there really
otherwise.
isn't anything new as far as conservation?
No, but if there are areas that were already in conservation that there needs to be discussion about removing, that would be something to.
So, yeah, so that is I think, 'cause you have the conservation district over here,
Yeah,
all highlighted.
yeah.
And this particular one, we used to own it, I think that's the sugar bush portion that Gabe now owns. So it's a sugar bush. So it should be agriculture, in my opinion. I don't know why it would be conserved, because it's, the development rights to all of that land have been sold, but so haven't a lot of other lands in Enosburgh, and they're not all conservation on it, so that's.
So is that the entire portion or just a portion of it that was?
Yeah, I don't know where the exact boundary line is, but that whole farm that we bought, and I think it is, the whole thing up to
Okay.
108 right here,
Yeah.
is all in village,
Okay, yeah, so this area.
yeah.
All of the Hayes Farm Road, right? Is conservation, is trust?
The whole farm is under land trust.
Okay.
So are Horrigan, so
Uh-huh.
are
Say there's a
Marshall
lot.
Paris,
So
so
that doesn't
are.
necessarily make it
So it should,
conservation.
in our opinion, you know, this is conservation district, and this is not. If the land trust ever changes their definition down the road, having this as a conservation district may limit that land
Yeah.
use.
Okay.
What, yeah, I wonder why that was in as a conservation district there.
It's an odd little spot, just specific.
Because we never saw it in the transactions when we bought the property, it never said anything different, we had it for over 10 years now. But, yeah,
Unless years ago, somebody just knew, you guys, it was, Hayes put it into put it into the land trust though, correct?
yes,
So I'm wondering if years ago, maybe that's why, it was just a conversation that when
You can't-
Pat and Kirsten had put it in, they're just like, oh,
It's where
but
the
we should
property
put that
is,
into
though.
you know what I mean? They were just like, we should put that into conservation because it's land trusted. I'm guessing that was just a conversation however
That's
many
where our
years
new
ago,
office
but
is supposed to be, so.
it really should be ag though, really.
and it may be at that time, that was the only one in the whole area in Enosburgh that was in land
It is hard to
trust.
tell,
And
right.
all these others
Yeah.
have been since.
Right, right.
So that's, is that a designation for land trusted land, all of it, or none of it? Should be
Right,
one or
right,
the other.
exactly. Yeah, would there be any correlation to that, Emily, at all?
I'm not necessarily, I don't remember off the top of my head, because I don't have it on here since it, what the definition for your conservation district is, but unless you you might have been trying to set it to the land trust lands at the time, but
Right.
it doesn't necessarily have to correlate, but.
Right, right.
Because you can sell your land out of land trust in certain circumstances, like sometimes people will buy back the development rights. But that still wouldn't change the zoning, so it can be different.
Yeah, the only other change, I mean, it wasn't it was a river corridor change that we made down by Maple Fields. We changed that section there, that if you wanted to build something kind of along that river, because there are houses there.
No.
Basically, don't build anything closer to the river, but as long as you keep in that line, you can add something there. We changed, that was another.
Yeah.
But again, it wasn't a zoning district change, but it was kind of a rules change.
Yeah, the other major rules changes were, a big one is, the planning commission was looking at moving from 1 acre to a 2 acre minimum lot size in the agricultural district, so that's the white. But with that being said, there would be what's called a conservation subdivision standard, which would be for major subdivisions, in your rural and agricultural districts, which would require you to put some percentage of the land conserved aside, and then the remainder of the developed lots could be 1 acre. So the idea is just to, when someone's subdividing, to cluster the lots. And you had something before called the planned unit development standards that tried to do that. But the thing is, your acreage for the agriculture was already 1 acre, and you can't really build less than 1 acre when you don't have sewer, because you need 1 acre for your septic usually. So by doing it this way, the hope is that this will actually have people subdivide, make the 1 acre lots, and then conserve a portion of the lot.
Yeah,
So what was the purpose going from 2 acres to 1 acres, or 1 acre to 2 acres on the ag land?
So it would incentivize to do the major subdivision with the conserved, and prevent like a lot of minor subdivisions where you kind of have this development pattern right now where you just have like sort of not very clustered growth happening, so it's impeding more on your agricultural land, versus if you really encourage developers to do 1 acre, 1 acre, 1 acre lots and conserve. I mean, they can still do more than 1 acre if they want, but that's the most economically efficient for them, and have that conserved land. It will cluster some of that development more, and you'll have more open
So
land,
the-
agricultural land.
But land, what's the difference to a 1 acre lot, or you try to cluster it and put them into 1 acre lots?
My thought,
Yeah.
so we actually were gonna change a lot of it to 2, not even just this, but we had a discussion about just changing the general requirements to 2 acres.
Yeah.
I know personally in mine, I know there have been situations, so it's great that you have a 1 acre lot, but with the whole wastewater overshadowing the septic thing, it can screw over your neighbor, you know what I mean, essentially, where you can only put your septic in a certain area. That overshadowing can then overshadow on your neighbor's lot, then making it useless. Where it was nice if you made it a 2 acre lot, you had more real estate to make sure you put your septic in your own boundaries, then you weren't really necessarily overshadowing. I mean, you still can, and there's nothing we can do about it. That's a state law, state rule, but that was kind of one of the thoughts that we had considered into changing the lot size, because it is nice to have the 1 acre, but I do know of people who lost lots because they essentially are worthless because of that overshadowing rule. So it was just,
Well, yeah, I've been seeing plenty of that through the years on our properties, and we keep getting in the mail. And it's like, well, what's gonna happen down the road if, you know, maybe we're not thinking of it now, but 10 years from now, if we wanna put something, oh, we can't. It's
you can't do anything, right?
from somebody else, and it's not even
Yeah.
their land.
And I had to talk with Michael about that, because I said, well, what happens, because we have a piece of property that actually happened to me.
Yeah.
And we went from 3 acres of useful, maybe lots, 3 lots, down to, okay, maybe you get 2 lots out of this. And he said it's basically first come, first served, so if you do your septic plan right now, and you do your subdivision, and you have those ready, and your neighbor tries to do something, yours is already in first, so it's like, that's not
Does the
fair,
neighbor
it's
have
not a
to
fair
get-
thing to
Do you have to get permission from the neighbor if it's overshadowing?
You get notified.
Yeah.
There's no permission to be, because we tried to fight it on the one that happened with us. And Michael said there's not been a case in Vermont where the person fighting the overshadowing on their property saying, you're devaluing my property, you're ruining it for my development, et cetera, et cetera. Nobody has ever won a fight against that.
Huh. What if you only owned an acre? It would ruin it.
Right. Even on us personally, like we bought 2.24 acres. We even, I mean, not enough to ruin, you know, ovets on the other side, but we do overshadow on the ovets.
So they get notified by certified
Yeah.
mail, and you can be told, and you get to look at the plans and everything, but there's really nothing you can do to fight it.
So can you oh, go ahead, Pete.
Well, I was just wondering, is there any setbacks put in on their septics to minimize the overshadowing with the 2 acre lots, or is it still up to?
I know that would be like a Michael, I know like it all depends on slope, soils, that kind of stuff.
Where the water
yeah,
source
right.
is.
So it could be ineffective if people still put their septic in near the boundaries.
Right, depending on, it still could be, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, when we had discussed, or I don't know, we discussed a bunch of stuff, because like Berkshire, we don't want to go back to the old 10 acre rule, that was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
We had talked about, you know, the 5 acre rule, but again, is it like,
The problem with that, people can't afford
yeah,
taxes
right,
on 5 acres.
right, exactly, you know, so that's where we had kind of, I think we still left it at 1 acre, I think the board had kind of said, well, leave it at 1 acre, but this year was, we changed it to 2.
So when you say conserve, what do you mean? Is it legally conserved? I mean,
Yeah.
is there,
It would
there's
have
writing in
some
the-
sort of like, either whether it was like through like a HOA, or they can deed it over to the town or the Vermont Land Trust or whoever they want, if they prefer that. And the town wants it, which they might not. But yeah, it would be some percentage, and I think we're still discussing exactly what that would be. But that, and the goal would be to have them all connect up, so like ideally, and obviously this would be subject to like where they can put the septic and all of that, but you would have, you know, if you had someone come in and put in 4 lots in a conserved area, then you'd someone come in over here and put in 4 lots, and then you could make the conserved areas line up, so you could have that be a big agricultural field or a sugar bush or whatever it could be used for.
The one that you guys had come to you about the road, remember the plan, the PUD that was in Bakersfield? And the road, they came to the road, that's essentially the situation that happened there. There were 4 lots that were adjacent to 108, and then they had to conserve. They had Bakersfield has a lot larger conservation requirement than what theirs is a percentage?
Yeah, I'm
It's
not
something,
sure
it's-
exactly, yeah, it's a lot more
It's a
land
lot, it's a
conserved
lot,
than we're
and we're trying to minimize that as much as possible, basically.
But even at 2 acres in your planned development, then that extra acreage you're conserving is wasted. It's not gonna be ag land.
And who
No,
who
not
does
if
it
you're- not
remain?
if you
Like, I
conserve
guess
an
I'm a
acre out
little
of 2.
bit confused, because
I mean, let's
I don't
compare to a
really,
field.
I'm being thick. So, say I divide and I
Yeah.
have a 2 acre lot, and I'm gonna have somebody build a house on it.
Yeah.
But we have to conserve a portion of it.
No,
Who owns it?
this is for these two kind of merge, this is for the PUD, the planned unit
Yeah.
development. So so we're having a 2 acre lot, individual lot, we're changing just that in the agricultural district. Separate item is the planned unit development, so if you have 4 lots in, you would do 2 acre, 2 acre, 2 acre, 2 acre, and then then you would have to leave a certain portion
So it would be the
conserved.
original
Of that
developer
total-
Of
that
that
still.
total.
Of the total.
Yes, or it
yeah,
could
area
be,
to be
like,
built.
if you have an HOA to pay for your private road, the HOA would basically own that land.
So that's
And then
land though
the-
that person is gonna own, that they can't do anything on, that they're still gonna pay taxes.
Correct.
Yeah,
Well, you could probably mow it or something.
Right, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
But I mean, make it into lawn, right?
Yeah, you could,
Yeah.
right.
Right.
yeah,
Right, it just has to be conserved, you can't build anything.
Yeah, you can't, yeah.
yeah, depending on, like, if it backs up on existing ag land, you may be able to, or sorry, it depends on the situation, obviously, if it's, you know, an acre and a half and it's isolated from anything else, is it really useful for ag? No, but if it is, you know, still contiguous with other ag land, you could rent it out, for example.
Again, we're trying not to make it so it's like, out of a 40 acre parcel, like 35 of it, you know what I mean, has to be conserved. We're trying to keep it as the least amount as possible to not have it, just sit and grown up brush.
Just the bigger you make the envelope, the building envelope, the more you're wasting land. And the septic isn't gonna work. What you're trying to do is great, unless you got setbacks or where they're gonna put their septics, they're still gonna put it wherever it fits,
Yeah,
maybe near a boundary and have overshadowing. So
I'm a big believer that this is on the state. They need to
Yeah.
make some of these engineers create different systems that they don't overshadow, because they shouldn't even be allowed.
no, yeah.
Because they do make systems, you just have to do a modified map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you don't need to overshadow on somebody else's property. They just need to make the engineers do it. The homeowner has to pay more money, then that's what they have to do.
But you're not ruining your neighbor's name.
Right?
in the process.
It's not fair.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
So that's that change.
Did-
Yep,
Does the building lot size, what is it in rural residential, does it go to 2 acres there too, or is it?
It's gonna be the same, well, it goes that way, it goes to 1.
I believe it's 1 right now, but we're still in discussion.
Yeah, we're still,
For
yeah.
the
For rural residential.
rural residential?
Yeah,
Yeah, but we're still not really sure if it's gonna stay that way or what's gonna happen, so.
you have opinions one way or the other.
Yeah, the other,
Yeah.
they always got the opportunity to buy more if they want bigger
Yeah.
lots, but if you, rather than make them have to buy it, the bigger the lot, the more you're gonna break your land up.
Yes. Yeah, we got some of that with those 10-acre lots, it's going to, the Howard Road right there is,
Yeah.
they only need 2 or 4 acres, there's a bunch of woodlot behind them that they don't do anything with it.
There was that period of state wastewater law where you have all those like super skinny 10-acre lots that were developed.
Spaghetti
What-
lots.
Yeah, spaghetti lots.
A lot of them.
What are
Yeah,
the,
really terrible
Boston West has a bunch of those.
land use.
Yeah.
If you ever look at my map on the wall, there's a lot of those spaghetti lots.
Yeah.
what is the road frontage requirement for the 2 acre lots?
Oh, what did we change it to? I don't remember
On
what
the
it is.
top of my head, I don't, yeah, I think it's like
It's normally what-
150 or something like
Yeah,
that, but
150, 200 feet.
200.
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
200, I think. Is
Yeah,
it still
200.
that?
yeah, I think it's still 200.
Man, I don't
It
think we
might-
changed anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does any consideration get taken in, so that's fairly large road frontage, right?
Yeah,
With the driveway standards, because if you have that much frontage, is it necessary when you have the desire to merge driveways?
What do you mean, you're talking?
Like if you're told you need to share driveways, and you have that much frontage, it's like,
Right, yeah, I mean, well, that again, I know we talked about, I know Joey likes the shared thing, and we talked about if it's gonna be, I don't know if you put it in here, we talked about if it is gonna be a shared driveway, we're gonna need a file or a recorded agreement. That way, later on down the line, it doesn't, come back. We might have dropped it to 150, Emily.
we might have, I don't remember.
It was 200, and I
Yeah.
think we might have shrunk it up a little bit to 150. But yeah, if you have,
I don't want
right.
spaghetti lots, but I
Yeah.
also, like, the distance in the front, you have to have a shared driveway.
And I believe that if it's 3 or more, then it becomes a private road.
Right.
And then you can have frontage along your private road,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's really just for if you have two.
And then if you go a certain distance too, I'd have to look at it again, the distance as well. If your driveway is a certain amount of distance, or the right of way, if you have a 50-foot
Yeah.
right of way, then you don't have, then yeah, it changes, yeah, you don't have, as long as you have the right of way, you don't have to have the road frontage.
Yeah, that's state
Yeah.
law. If you have 50-foot right of way here and no frontage, you can still develop. So that's that piece. There were a few changes that for the Home Act, which was the act the legislature passed last year. There's not a ton that affects the town because most of the changes are only for places with water and sewers in the village. But one of them is requiring no more than 1.5 parking spaces per unit on multi-unit developments rather than 2. So that's a state change.
So the state wants you to have less space?
Less.
For more people?
Less parking spaces, yeah.
Well, doesn't
For
make any sense.
multi-unit. Yeah.
So instead of 1 per unit, a total of 1.5?
No, 1.5 per unit rather
Per
than 2
unit.
per
It
unit.
used to be 2.
It used to be 2.
But what's a half?
So if you had like 2 units.
I'm not being sassy, I wanna really know what a half
Yeah.
is.
So if, like
Two
you had
bicycles and a
a
moped.
duplex, you have 3 spots. Like, or if you had 4 units, it would be 6 spots. And I think you round up, I believe. So for 3, it would be 5. I can do math quickly.
I mean, in all honesty, what is a half a space?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know,
It's-
Well,
it's
the thing
because
is,
it's
that
per unit.
say the width on it was 10 foot. So instead, that would make it 20 feet.
It,
So now you
But
can
if
go,
you're saying something that's not actually gonna be a parking space, what's the point of it?
No,
Because
so-
if you can't actually use it.
you round up if you come up with a half, I believe. So the idea is like, because for a lot of numbers, like a duplex, you have, for a duplex, you have 3 spaces total, which is 1.5 per unit. And if you had like 3 spaces, you would round it up to 5. And
That's what I was gonna do.
yeah, I think essentially this was put into, the state's reasoning is that if you have a more dense area, you don't need a car. That doesn't really apply very well to a lot of our rural communities, but
Right, yeah.
it is the law.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the rural
And everybody-
communities. I mean, even if you're living here in the village, some people are in a hurry, you can't just always walk wherever you want.
And the other
Stuff
thing
to
is,
do.
most generally, it's a couple that both go to work every day. That's silly.
Go to
Yeah.
work,
So-
or go get groceries for your
Right.
kid, you have to have.
Well,
a
this
vehicle.
changes the minimum, it does not change, developers can still put in as much parking as they want, so. I think that most developers in these types of areas will realize that most people want, 2 spaces.
But what happens, am I looking at it wrong, like what happens if you have somebody who wants to, like, we have a building next door to our office?
Yeah.
And it changes into, say, a 5-unit
Yeah,
apartment building,
mhm,
and they're not mandated to do more,
yeah,
then the burden becomes that of the municipality.
yeah, it could create traffic
Like
problems.
street parking.
Street parking.
So if they have a garage, like a drive-in garage, is that considered a parking spot?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that would be considered a spot, anything that basically is,
Or a whole car.
yeah.
No, like these ones on streets, do they consider street parking as part of that or
No,
not?
street parking wouldn't be considered. It would have to be a parking lot or a parking garage.
Like in the village, especially in the central business district on Main Street, the residential parking is protected, so the retail, professional services, those kind of things there, the DRB doesn't have to require off-street parking because there's the Upper House lot, there's, the park and ride, there's those off-street options, but they do have the responsibility to protect the tenants to provide parking spaces, so.
Now, also with these state rules, can't we be stricter than them? Or require more than them?
So for this one, you can't require more parking spaces. You can only be, in the sense, the state views being stricter as requiring less parking, if that makes sense.
Nope, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
I thought, so we can't,
yeah,
your regional or your local
yeah.
bylaws can't be stricter than the state? I
No.
thought they could.
Not,
No.
in general, but in this situation, the way that it's
Their
written.
stricter is the opposite.
Their stricter is the opposite of what you're thinking, essentially.
I guess your idea of strict to mine are different.
Yeah,
We can't require two then.
no. 1.5 is for our understanding.
But we could require one.
Right.
Yes, you could require one if you wanted.
The trouble with this bill that they had signed in, this S100, this housing bill,
Yeah.
the problem was, and I know you guys spent a long time
Yeah.
going through the 100 and whatever pages it was.
Yeah.
And VLCT they were against it because there was too many situations like this where it was a very knee-jerk reaction to the housing crisis. And you have situations like this where we're so tight on parking and everything, and that's why VLCT was like, hold on, let's slow up before we just push this out into the world, and it just got pushed out into the world. And I mean, you guys are still, every meeting we have, you guys are still ciphering through it, you know, and trying to figure out what the meaning of stuff is, so.
So you can't require in your bylaws, so we can't force them to have the parking spaces because that's state, but can you make them keep certain footprint of like green space that could be potentially used as a space to park your car?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you could require like a lot. I don't know if it was like yard space, but then you could go parking in the yard, which is also not ideal. And again, I'm not exactly sure. We'll see if anything happens this legislative session, because this is meant to come into effect, I believe. The 1.5 will come into effect December 1st of this year, 2024, so it hasn't quite come into effect yet. The other provisions have already gone into effect, but that particular provision hasn't, so I'm not sure if there'll be any further changes to it.
Technically, if they build a garage, they're gonna have two anyways, because you're gonna have the inside, you get to have the road frontage to get to it.
Right.
So there's gonna be the spot there too. That's only if you got a garage.
Yeah, but like I said, the one next to us, to the office, that potentially could be, I don't know how many, 3, 4, more. Four spaces. The out back is on the roads, because that's where people should park.
And he has a 25-foot right of way through there too.
Yeah, so they can park too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are a number of places that is a pinch.
Yeah, so that's that one, and probably the sort of trickiest provision from the Home Act, the most difficult one for a lot of communities. The other, which the town essentially was already doing, and I think everything but conservation district, is just ensuring that duplexes are allowed wherever single family homes are, essentially. And that isn't really a big change, because that was already allowed in most of your districts. And then another change is with the street standards is on dead end or cul-de-sac streets, requiring the developers to hold up to mark some sort of right of way where a future street connection could go. So the idea of that is that if you have more land developed in the future, ideally rather than creating a whole bunch of cul-de-sacs, which wastes a lot of space, you could connect those streets together through that right of way, and it would be marked and not developed on, so that everyone knows that that right of way is there and could be built in the future. And then there are changes to the flood hazard standards, which are adding that river corridor, but as Jesse said, with the standards that allow you to build in the river corridor if it's along where the existing development is, essentially it's not worse than the existing. And then also adding some changes to the flood hazard regulations, which are the state's recommendations that are like just a little bit above the federal requirements. So just for example, instead of having your development in the floodplain elevated 1 foot above the 100-year flood line, which is the expected 1% risk of flood, doing it 2 feet above, it doesn't add that much cost to development to jack it up that extra foot, and it will make it significantly less likely that that building will flood, especially because FEMA's data is all based on just what happened in the past, and in the last 10 years the floods have gotten worse in Vermont, so trying to make sure that in the future, for the next 100 years that the building's going to be around, it won't flood. And then also adding something which is compensatory flood storage, which sounds kind of complicated, but it's actually just if you're adding fill into the floodplain, you just dig that fill out of another part of your property, so you're not basically, if you add a foot of fill to raise your house up so that it doesn't flood, but you don't do anything else, there's less space for the floodwaters to go and you could be flooding your neighbor. But if you then dig out part of your yard so it's a little lower to the ground, the water has somewhere else to go that's not your house and not your neighbor's house.
It's called Lake Champlain.
Gravity, yeah.
Do they really spend a lot of time coming up with this crap?
I don't know. But the idea is basically that when someone new builds, you're not making all your neighbors
So,
flood.
but they're not saying you go dredging in the river like
No,
you
it's
should.
not.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
just saying dig a different hole in your yard.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just reduced the elevation of some other part of your yard, so the water has somewhere to go that's not.
It's too bad they weren't saying go dredging.
And then the last thing is just clarifying that municipal ticketing is allowed for zoning enforcement. So this is something Jesse had asked about, which is that the main method of zoning enforcement is you send your letter, certified mail, that it's not in conformance, and then you have to take them to environmental court to pursue any sort of, if they don't do it voluntarily. But with the ticketing, it's more for things like garbage or like an event use that shouldn't be happening, smaller issues. You can basically write, it's the same as a traffic ticket, to the person who is infringing, and send that to them, and they have to pay that back. And if they want to dispute it, it goes through traffic court essentially.
So in the bylaws though, there is sections that discuss how many square yards or miles of garbage you can or cannot have. Is it still in there?
We haven't really got into the question always is what is garbage and how much garbage.
Yeah, and how much
we
can
have.
you-
We
Because
haven't
we
got
have a
into
few
that.
places in town that
Yeah.
you can measure
Yeah.
with all long tape measure.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about how we need to figure out a better definition for what that is, but we haven't really settled on one yet.
The ticketing process, do they, unpaid, do they become a lien on the property or?
From my understanding, so you issue the ticket, if they're in violation, you can issue a ticket for that every day, single day, that they don't resolve the problem. The tickets go to the judicial bureau. They have to either pay the ticket, if they don't pay the ticket and they wanna fight it, they go to the judicial bureau. The judicial bureau hands them down a sentence, and if whatever that sentence is, if they don't pay that, then it becomes a lien, I believe, is what, from my research.
Yeah, and if they go to the judicial bureau and don't pay, my understanding is that they'd also be in contempt of court at that point.
Right.
It's the same as like if you don't pay a traffic ticket and you don't go to court.
But the best way for us
Yeah.
to collect or to get somebody to do something has always been a lien
Yeah.
on the property, because nobody wants to see that,
Yeah.
especially if they're going to sell or buy or refinance.
Yeah.
Is there ways to make that happen easier than going through the judicial system, which doesn't work?
This is the faster option, I think, versus going to environmental court, because to go to environmental court, the town really needs to hire a lawyer to defend themselves, whereas in the judicial bureau, like Jesse can just go the same as like a cop would go if someone were to dispute their ticket, and it's, you don't need a lawyer, so it is cheaper for the town.
So you can't just, he sees the violation.
Yeah.
You can't just go, oh, there's a violation, put it in the books.
From my, you have to.
You have to actually go through
Yeah.
the bureau.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause the other way, like she said, was the, environmental court thing, basically.
Just trying to think of something.
Yeah. The process is super fast, but that is quicker, and generally, I think towns find that when people get that official ticket, that's like a traffic ticket, most people are either gonna pay it and fix it because they don't want to deal, versus this kind of like nebulous idea of the town like driving to environmental court, but I know that they need to hire a lawyer and it's gonna cost thousands of dollars.
And to the landowner, not the tenant.
Yeah, it's to the landowner.
Cause the tenant's just gonna
Yeah.
Are they, the tickets or the fines sufficient enough to get your attention?
I think it's like $100 a day or something like that.
Yeah, it, for every day, the language you had, because it
Yeah.
it gets expensive in a hurry.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
you can keep ticketing every day is a new violation.
Okay, good.
Yes,
So those are the main changes. I included this because all of the changes, and I included some highlights here. The yellow are proposed new language, and the sort of gray highlight, I wanted it to be blue, but blue is like illegible when you print it, is things that merge the town and village standards. A few other changes. What you were calling a certificate of compliance, just change the name to certificate of occupancy. That's what the state uses, and it's a little less confusing, because usually the certificate of compliance is what you can like voluntarily get if you're gonna sell your property and need to prove there's not a zoning violation, versus the certificate of occupancy is what's required when you have a new permit. We also did talk about reducing the parking standards for commercial uses. That was mainly based on with Tractor Supply, when it was built in the village, that the developer actually requested less parking than the zoning bylaw was saying, and I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that lot full, at least when I've driven by.
Yeah, it was something crazy. It was like Tractor Supply needed like 90 spaces. I can't remember. It was a stupid amount, so we dialed that back.
So we, brought that back a little bit, looked at what some other towns were doing, so that'd be more in line with that.
Well, would this be a place, like, if the DRB requires, like, they have required Tractor Supply to install a sidewalk, is that where the discussion could take place, where if the sidewalk is there and is brought up to the standard, that
Yeah.
the municipal entity that is there should then take it over for it to be cleared?
Yeah, we've talked a bit about that and making sure that there would be requiring some sort of plan to be put in place when those sidewalks are built as to who is responsible and who is paying for it. Whether that be the DRB requiring the applicant to do it or in the municipality. So we know that's been an issue. Sign standards, there was this language not allowing any illuminated signs, I believe, so we changed that to allow for illuminated signs with some boundaries to make sure you're not having like a flashing Vegas style sign, but the accessory dwelling unit standards, updating it to that reflect current state law, which is 900 square feet or 30% of your home size. With camping vehicles and campgrounds, one of the things the planning commission was talking about is currently you have, for the town, you can use your RV, like if you had friends visiting, or if you had an RV on your property as like a seasonal use for 4 months. The planning commission was talking about increasing it to 6, which we get you to roughly that May to September time frame that people usually want to use their properties seasonally. Also in 512, this is another thing that used to be regulated under planned unit development, which is mixed uses. So like, if you have a store on the first floor and then an apartment above that, for example, it's both a residential and commercial use. What we found is that usually the planned unit development standards are just kind of complicated for towns to administer, and it's easier to just allow it, like, let's say it's a conditional use for the store, you just allow the whole thing to go under as conditional use. And this doesn't really apply to the town, but in the village where both of those are permitted uses, you could just allow that to go on as a permitted use because it is both uses that are expected. For 513 in mobile home parks, there was a requirement that utility lines had to be buried in mobile home parks, but it was a may be required in subdivisions. That runs afoul of essentially the Vermont's fair housing law, because you can't treat mobile home parks differently than like a other subdivision. So we're just changing it to may for both, so the DRB can require if appropriate. terms of landscaping and, one of the other issues that had come up was that was making sure that the landscaping actually survives the winter. So we included a provision where the DRB could require a bond for the landscaping, as well as just some more detailed standards that clearly states that Enosburgh is in a certain growth zone from the federal government is 4 and not 5. And that plant should be appropriate for that. Because a lot of what folks put in that might live in Massachusetts or whatever won't make it. Yeah, so those were basically a summary of the main changes that I'm going to bring to Jesse. I don't know if you have anything to add.
The only other thing was the administrative review is now boundary line, simple boundary line adjustments where they're just straightforward. Nothing funky. They can be approved administratively in-house rather than going to the DRB for 5 seconds of, hey, we're doing this. We're talking about allowing simple two-lot subdivisions as well being administratively approved. Again, nothing weird, non-conforming law, if it meets the dimensional standards, there's no sense in sending somebody to the DRB if we can do it in-house and be a lot quicker. And then allowing, if there is a weird boundary line adjustment or something looks funky or something, like, okay, you gotta go to the DRB, they've gotta do it. We're just trying to make things a little bit more streamlined and easier for people, instead of, waiting all that time and going through, the board, so.
Yeah, I think it's good to bring that up. It makes it cheaper and easier for everyone because the person doing it doesn't have to go to the DRB, and the town stipends all the DRB members, so not having to have a hearing for something that is simple and doesn't need it. Probably doesn't make a big change. And that was always something that was a bit of a gray area in state law that they actually clarified with the Home Act. It is allowed, so it makes us, you can be a lot more confident adding that into your bylaw knowing it's clearly allowed.
And then the other thing is the fee schedule too. Emily and I talked last week and updating all the fees, because the fees are, I know the village, I didn't realize for the longest time there was town and village fees, so I've been just using the town fees because it's just easier or whatever, but we're gonna have one set of fees and updating them to reflect. Like she said, it's $50 a member we're paying, and so as long as we don't need to make money, but at least cover our costs. So.
Yeah, that's the ideal. It'll be probably increasing a little bit some of those fees for the DRB hearing ones, that it's covering the basic cost of, you have to stipend the DRB members if you pay for certified mail, to all the abutters, so.
And then at the same time, not trying to be stupid, there's such a range in fees. St. Albans City, it costs you, it's like $1,000 for, a permit. So we're trying to keep it,
Cost covering, not money making. Any other questions or comments, the things the planning commission should consider?
I've said mine.
What?
I've said mine.
Yes.
Yeah,
They're all pretty seasoned, they all started out in the planning commission.
no, I didn't do planning commission.
Oh, you didn't, you said did
DRB.
Jumped right to DRB.
Yeah. Zoning, it was actually zoning board first, and graduated to the DRB. Yeah, sure. Anybody else got any questions for her?
I guess the only other thing, Jesse, would be, I don't know if you talked to them about potentially reducing the size of the DRB, or.
we talked a little bit about it, because we've had a challenge with the forums, and I've been kind of waiting. We've been busy with the salt and sand shed and then now budget, so I was gonna wait till after we, and then move it from a 7-member to a 5-member, so then we have a 3-member quorum, so that's,
back in the day, that's what happened when we were in DRB, it was 5. And I think we moved to the 3, or no, actually,
Yeah, we're 3.
yeah, because it was like,
Yeah, I think when you merged the town and the village, there was
then,
some feeling
then
that
it was,
was
no,
really
it
huge.
was, there was enough interest at the time.
Yeah. Actually, it doesn't really need to be that big. You can always have alternates.
Right.
Right.
So-
Exactly.
You need to yell at Angie and get her going again.
It's hard with everybody. Everybody's got so much stuff going on, you know what I mean? So it's tough. You know, and some nights it's like it's weird. One will text me, and next thing you know, the dominoes all fall. It's like, so.
And just out of curiosity on this
Yep.
revision and everything, I don't know if this even applies, but we had a situation there up on the hill where they had bought property in Sheldon, and the driveway was going through
Duffy Hill.
Enosburgh. Does that kind of address that because of, or
Yeah, the development's not on our town land, but the right of way is.
And so it was like a problem with permitting it because it was just the
Well,
driveway
how
or
can
whatever.
the town justify if the road is good enough?
Yeah.
They don't have any, you know. they
It's
have
kind of
to-
like what happened in Bakersfield too,
yeah,
on the Bakersfield line. That PUD, same situation there too, really.
And something like that impacts the town that doesn't end up getting the taxes
Yeah,
for the
you're getting
residential.
tax benefits,
So
yeah.
there should be like an impact fee or something that goes along with that.
I mean, have you come across anything like this?
I have not, but I haven't done a deep dive into
Yeah.
what other towns do, so I can take a look at what some other towns do in terms of like roads coming along their border.
Yeah, so we got a road foreman here that, you know, he'd be responsible for the culverts and everything like that, but then it's like
Yeah.
to, you know, not the, it's the property owners that own the land through, in our town, but the big taxes
Yeah,
are gonna be
local.
collected from
Yeah.
the residential home by our town, it'd be somebody else.
Yeah, we can definitely take a look at that.
I have Joey's standards, too, driveway standards.
Okay,
that I'll
good.
give you a
Yes.
shout, and we'll go over that.
We had talked about that, making sure the driveway standards and the zoning bylaws are right.
The turnarounds and for like
Yeah.
cul-de-sac, to make sure that, you know, the ladder truck can turn, and, you know.
Okay?
Cool.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Good job.
Shaw, you're next on the agenda.
Good evening, how are you?
Yeah, good.
How are you?
Ron?
Oh, lovely. So, I'm back to talk dairy center fields and I guess technically rec budget for maintenance. The school board is going to give, I'm going with the something's better than nothing response. They're gonna give $1,500 this year for fall maintenance, or towards fall maintenance, because they give $1,500 currently to the town of Richford for use of their fields. And they wanna monitor, I've gotta keep track of how much the school actually utilizes them. So I don't know if Margot I actually had sent her a message, but a late message. So I don't know if she had
She hasn't been in for the budget.
allotted for any, she hasn't put in for her budget yet?
No, that's next week.
Okay, so I will mention to her, I reached out to Lise. The Little League, as you know, doesn't necessarily have a budget for anything like that, but my thought was, I'm trying to think where all this money can come from. They typically will send a letter to the foundation for a donation. Maybe the letter can include, would you donate this much towards field maintenance specifically? Because I think in talking with as you know, Margot and Shyla have connected about how they can work together, and in that conversation, I don't think, well, I don't want to speak for them, I'm not part of that group, so I'm not going to, but, I think that might be a way to maybe get another piece of money, so I guess I wanted to make you guys aware of that the school did offer.
Something is better than nothing.
Something, that's what I'm going with. It was quite an interesting conversation, but it's all good. So I did ask Lynn, who's going to refer to Morgan, assuming all this can be figured out, how best to, I guess, get that money from them at the time that you need to. So that's kind of an update on that. I don't know if you guys had any questions specifically for me. I'll make sure I relay that info to Margot as well. And I don't know, I don't know what her thoughts were within her budget, or I don't know if you've had any conversations with her.
No, her and I had the conversation, and it was basically, if the school doesn't give any, we don't have another choice but to ask the board to approve it, because we can't go backwards after the work has been done.
And I really do think, and again, like I said, this was kind of a brainstorm that I had after talking to Lynn and the school board. I mean, I really do think, and I've reached out to Lise, I just haven't been able to connect with her yet. I'm hopeful that, because they typically will, if the Little League asks, I think it's like $500 that they usually give them. Maybe they can bump it up a little bit if it's used for that specifically. So it's kind of my thought to try and help as well. Just so you guys are aware, Little League did get the grant to put in the new batting cage. So that will be happening this spring. I guess that's kind of really the only update I have on that. And then I know you guys are probably tight in your schedule. Are you all aware of the legislative breakfast on January 22nd?
We were speaking about it before the meeting.
Okay, good. Is somebody gonna go?
It's here.
Or are some people here?
It's at our Legion, correct?
It's at our Legion. I am working with Penny. I'm gonna make sure all the business owners are aware. I already know some business owners that are planning on going. I'm trying to make sure that Mike McCarthy is gonna be there because he is on the impeachment committee.
So what time? During the daytime?
8 o'clock, 8 to 9:30. Penny said, what did Penny say?
It's on Monday, the 22nd.
Monday the 22nd. January 22nd starts at 8 a.m. to 9:30 at the Enosburgh Legion. Legislators from Franklin County will be there to answer questions. Bob and Randy Brock should be there too.
Sound Central Enosburgh Fire within Monday test on Sound Central Enosburgh Fire within Monday test on Sound Central. They're making away.
And then he said Mike McCarthy has been invited and he was going to specifically reach out to him again. Tom, I know, I had asked Tom Oliver if he was going to be there. He said that he couldn't be. But I know that Mike specifically is on the impeachment committee. And then, what prompted it, of course, was I had reached out to Penny because I'm sure, obviously, you guys are all aware of all the stuff going on in town.
Yes, I see it right from my window every single day.
Yes, and Pierre, I see one of your neighbors got arrested yesterday. I saw him put them in handcuffs and put them in a car on my way by going to Hannaford's.
They're probably out an hour.
Oh, I'm sure, but it's quite interesting to see.
Was it the sheriff or state?
It was the sheriff. Yeah. I was late yesterday afternoon.
You sure it was him?
Well, it's
I saw them
Maybe not
bring them
him.
down the stairs and put them in the car. I don't know. It was a skinnier gentleman.
It wasn't the
Okay. Right.
So, anyway.
Something better than nothing.
I personally am going to Montpelier on Wednesday. It's more of an agriculture legislative thing, but there's stuff that I want to bring in to whatever
Okay.
legislators that we have there. definitely. it's
And I'm
affecting
gonna,
Shannon.
I'm gonna make sure John and the trustees are aware as well, so that, I mean, John should go. And I'm sure he will. Unless he's got something scheduled that keeps him away. Specifically, I don't see why he wouldn't go.
Right.
And then I didn't know, do you guys have any kind of joint meetings scheduled between the two trustees?
Not during budget time.
Not during budget time, okay. Because it seems like, I mean, I know that like you guys hold the policing contract, but it seems like I have no idea what the cost would be. Or even if it's a possibility for us to have our own, like Swanton has their own. But like, is that something that the town and the village would work together on and share? Or would that have to be just
It
like
would be the general fund, it would be the town.
between
You definitely would have to have
but it's nothing that, like,
participation from both bodies to even make it economical.
right, and that's
And
what
it
I,
may
has there
to
been
have
any
another town come in,
conversation
may make it even
with
more.
the trustees at all about that?
I don't know
it
if
just
they
seems
were
like-
here that time we discussed it with some legislators, they probably weren't at that meeting.
No, I don't think so. No. There has been discussion, but not
And
joint.
it's not an easy process to even get it
Oh, I'm
established.
I'm sure.
The bottom line is, there's not enough people to do, because even before this current sheriff came on board, the one before, we were starting to lose hours. And-
He had dropped Sheldon, and then still, because Grismore did not take over till, I think, the first part of February. We didn't have much coverage in December, we had no coverage in January, and we had no coverage in February, so even before, I mean, I think it was people leaving because, but,
Well, and I understand, like, I think I understand that we're only paying for the coverage that we get.
yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know, it just seems,
Coverage that we get, most of it is not
Right.
what, not the hours that we would like to see. But Jesse has a contact that he's been working with, trying to get us numbers to see what we would be looking at.
it just seems
For our
worth
own.
exploring.
Oh, we
like,
have, and,
Yeah,
I mean, for months now.
right.
But it's a big undertaking because you're not just talking about just getting them a car and a gun.
Oh, no, of
It's
course.
dispatching,
Yeah.
it's offices, it's equipment, it's
Yeah,
more than
it's
one
more
person,
than
because you
one
can't just
person.
have one person running the whole show, you need multiple people.
Oh, it's not, I'm not
But it's definitely-
insinuating it's an easy solution by any means, but it
No,
just
no, but
seems
it's
that
one that we definitely.
some,
But looking at the costs, back from when we had Sheriff Norris to where we are today, and where he's showing future prices, to keep it in-house would make a lot more sense.
right, and that's, I mean, at least then, I feel like,
You got control.
I mean, right, you have control, it's our own, and more, it's gotta be more of a presence in that case.
You can have them walking up and down
Right,
the streets instead of driving.
I mean, I can tell you, as you can imagine, that, I mean, business owners on Main Street are nervous. You know, they're beyond nervous.
Yeah, cars driving through stores. So
I mean, yeah, I mean, drive into our town and you either board it up or, you know, it's, I don't know.
But I think that started, and it's across the nation. It's not
Oh,
just Vermont.
It's not just Enosburgh.
Enosburgh or
I've
just
heard stories
Vermont.
of Bakersfield, Fairfield,
It's
I mean, it's
different
everywhere.
states, it's everywhere. When people started defunding the police and bringing in psychologists and psychiatrists to deal with the problem, and when people don't deal with their children and make them responsible for things, that's when everything started to fall apart.
Well, and it's beyond policing. It's
It
court
is.
systems, it's state's attorneys, it's legislature, and that's
And
why
that's the
I feel
problem
like
we're-
it's
we're seeing
important
now.
that people are at that breakfast. And also, I mean, not for nothing, and it's not like an overnight solution, but if they don't impeach Grismore, he's not going anywhere
No, no.
until he's voted out.
Right.
So what is gonna happen, you know, in that case? And even if he is impeached, who do they put, I don't know,
Well,
like, I don't
that's-
have a
that's the
crystal
whole
ball,
thing is-
but,
Because
you
you
know,
have to
they've
find
lost a
people to
lot
hire back.
of their labor force, and even
where do they
even
go?
after change, it's going to be built back up.
absolutely.
And
But
it's
where do
just-
those people go?
A lot of them went to St. Albans and Grand Isle.
Yeah.
So they did get scooped up.
Right. So anyway, I don't wanna take time in your agenda, cause I know you have an agenda, but I just wanna make sure you were all aware of that legislative breakfast and hope that, you know, somebody can come and, you know, put their feet to the fire a little bit. I mean, I just feel like they need to hear from, you know, you guys as a select board, the village as the trustees, business owners, you know, residents, that something needs to change. And it's not gonna get better overnight, like, it's not, but.
You know, but we do need to make changes, and especially about holding these people, because they go to jail, and within an hour they're out.
Imagine how frustrating it must be for, like, the people arresting them. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
blame them.
No,
I mean, they're
it's
doing
not
a job by arresting
The
these
few that we
people.
have, they're just doing their job, and then
You know.
within an hour they're back out on the street.
The
And
one
like,
big
I try to
consequence.
express to people, it's not, you know, it's not the select board either, like,
No, I
you
appreciate
guys,
your post.
you know,
great, yeah.
you guys, yeah, because I don't, it's frustrating to me to hear people, well, no, it's not, understand what it is, and that's,
We
So
had a
anyway.
budget, we have a pile of money, we can't put
Right.
it toward anybody because there's nobody
Exactly.
to pick it up.
exactly, yeah, so anyway, that was.
Well, that was good to put that out there.
We do appreciate
Yeah, for sure.
you explaining what is what, because
Well, and I don't,
people do tend to speak about stuff sometimes a little harshly when they don't really understand the
right, and I only know just from talking to you and having conversations and sitting in meetings with Mr. Grismore, Sheriff Grismore, and whatever, but anyway, so that's aside from why I was really here, but thank you
Okay.
for that extra
Yeah,
minute.
thank you. Perfect.
Right, have a good night.
Shauna, do you have any people that would wanna run a police department in Enosburgh?
Like maybe a cousin? Like maybe a cousin?
Do you wanna change job, Tom?
I don't know. I don't know. This is filmed?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have that conversation.
Call Dean.
Alright,
Joey, come sit up here and talk about your mileage.
yeah.
The mileage certificate that I had last week, I sent that in, and also, I guess this is something that, information that got started last year when we sent it in. Because they also, when you do that, they wanna know if you've updated any road surfaces or whatever, like, so we hadn't updated that we had paved Duffy Hill and a portion of Tyler Branch, so I brought that to their attention so that they could change that, and then when they're doing that with Duffy Hill, of course now they got a lot more advanced way of doing measuring, they can do it right online with Google Maps and whatever database they got that they can measure with. And they realized that Duffy Hill is like, I don't know, 700 feet, 300, I don't know, not that much, probably 300 some odd feet shorter than what they actually anticipated. So it's 3 100ths in Enosburgh and 4 100ths measurement in Sheldon. So in order for a legal process, they gotta make sure that you're aware of this and that you understand it, because you actually are gonna lose a little bit of money. With us, it's only like $50, $49 a year or so with today's rates. But it's class 3 road, so the rate's $1,630 and some change. It's about $50 a year at that rate that you'll be losing.
So do they need to do a new paper or just make a note in the minutes?
They just need the minutes noted that you are aware of their discovery of their information and that you understand it and that you agree that, yeah, okay, that's the way it is. In order to make it legal, or else it's a little longer process to do it. If you do it here through the select board meeting and it's on the minutes and I can send them a copy of the minutes, they can just simply make the changes and then it'll be done and over with.
Do they need a motion to accept the discrepancy?
I believe so, yeah. She said to have it in the minutes, so I would say the whole formal.
I'll move that we acknowledge the change of the footage on Duffy Hill.
I'll second that.
Dean made the motion, Peter seconded the motion to acknowledge the negative .03 change of mileage on Duffy Hill Road. Any more discussion? Having none, all those in favor of this acknowledgement, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Unanimous ayes. Approved.
And just put it in there in the minutes, BJ, that it's in conjunction with the Sheldon, their town road,
Yeah,
or
I
whatever.
did, I said this discrepancy between Enosburgh and Sheldon mileage.
But we both lost. Must be,
The road short.
it must be the environment is shrinking from the
Well, at first,
climate
she
change.
was talking
Global
0.3,
warming shrunk it,
She's
just like
talking-
my dryer does with the jeans.
she's talking 0.3 and 0.4, I'm thinking, geez, that's like 7/10 of a mile, that's a long
Yeah,
way, how can
yeah.
it be that much of a change? I said, oh, maybe the road changed over time and got straighter, so, but then, when she sent, that's what, the way she was saying it, but when you could see, read the emails, it's hundreds, not tenths, so.
So what'd be really interesting is if they're measuring this on the map, that's a straight scale. We've got roads that you gotta measure both sides, they go up and down, it's not straight. If you stretched it out
No, I
straight,
think this new.
it takes that into
Yeah,
account?
Yeah, I think it does, so
Oh.
she was explaining, there's quite a detail to it, but, yeah, I think it does.
Yeah.
It measures the contour besides just the.
'Cause we might have a 10-acre field, but there's actually 15 in it, because you go so much up, so it's true. You look at the surface spot,
Yeah, right.
and our roads do the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll have to look at that tax time then.
Yeah. You had another, was you gonna, that now measure?
Yeah, we'll have to go to executive, and I just
Oh.
asked Garrett to step, I thought Mark was coming, because he did say he would come up, but maybe he got way
Yeah, I
late
didn't
with
notice if
closing.
the flatbed was gone, maybe he's out on flatbed.
So, we've got everything else done, right?
Yep,
So basically, we're gonna have to go in executive session, and that's gonna be our last agenda item on the board. Who's coming in, Garrett?
Garrett's coming in, Mark was coming too, but like Joey said, he might have gone out on a record call.
All right, I'll move it, we go into executive.
I'll second.
Be a short night for you tonight,
Pierre
maybe.
made a motion.
Come on.
Phil seconded motion to go in executive. All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Approximately 7:25, we're going to executive.